Joining me now is Ali Mirzad. He is a senior advisor with the Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services. He joins me now from Ottawa. Ali, thank you for your time. Talk to us about what the Hazara community is facing right now with the Taliban that has taken over the power in Afghanistan.
Hi. Thanks actually for having us. I really appreciate the opportunity and the platform and for giving us the opportunity to raise the voices of the millions of Hazaras that are stranded in Afghanistan. Obviously, the events unfolding in Afghanistan in the last few days has impacted many Afghans here in Canada, and more so the Hazara community, simply because of the history that the Hazaras have had with the Taliban. In the 90s, when the Taliban in power from 96 to 2001, at the height of their power in 98, they launched a genocidal campaign against the Hazaras and slaughtered thousands in the span of a few days in Mazar-e-Sharif and Bamyan, which has been well documented by international human rights organization. And after the fall of the Taliban, the Hazara continued to suffer persecution at the hands of ISIS, Daesh, and other elements. In fact, the report from UNAMA in 2021 published that 80% of attacks that happened in Afghanistan were targeted at minorities, specifically the Hazaras. And now the population of Kabul, where the majority of people have basically fled to prior to the Taliban taking over, was approximately estimated to 5 million. There has never been a census. It is estimated maybe 7 million. As much as 25 to 30% of that population is Hazaras or represents the Hazaras. And there's so many people that are stranded there. I mean, we have all I have loved ones that are there. I spoke very briefly with my uncle on Monday, the next day after the Taliban's takeover on the capital. And he confirmed that Taliban had started going door to door. And it is not, despite the general belief or what has been said in media, the Taliban are not just after people that worked with foreign forces or foreign governments or NATO allied forces. They're also making lists of minorities, the Hazaras including. And while we commend and applaud the response the Canadian government has made towards this crisis and the announcement of the settlement of the 20,000 people, we're very profoundly concerned that the Hazaras have not been included in any of the vocabulary that the government has thus far used. And if I may just add that we, the Hazara Canadians here, through the organization that I represent, the Hazara community, the Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services, we have advocated for the human rights of the Hazara as far back as 2016. We had a statement in the Senate of Canada in 2016, in the House of Commons, similar statement in 2018. And as recent as June 22nd of this year, a month and a half ago, we presented our case to the House of Commons Parliamentary Human Rights Subcommittee. So they heard our case, and in that last session of the Parliamentary Human Rights Subcommittee, the meeting or the session was under the premise of the persecuted minorities of Afghanistan. And although the Sikhs and the Hindu community were as well represented in that session, we're a bit disappointed that in the vocabulary, the wordings that the government has thus far used to describe the vulnerable minorities in Afghanistan, it has not made any reference to the Hazaras. And our fear is that we would be left over, and should we be left over and forgotten in Afghanistan, what awaits for us is very clear in our memory, because a lot of us has still the trauma of the 90s of what we have suffered over there.
Clearly, in what you're explaining, Ali, a lot more work that needs to be done. And of course, like you're saying, the establishment there right now cannot be trusted with what's happening on the ground because they're saying something else. But like you're saying, you spoke with relatives back on the ground in Afghanistan, and the experience is altogether different. But unfortunately, we'll have to leave it at that. We'll speak with you again, Ali. But for the moment, thank you for joining us. That's Ali Mirzad, the senior advisor with the Canadian Hazara Humanitarian Services. We thank you for your